Welcome to Japan Seikatsu. I'm Ian, and today I would like to speak to you about how I chose an MBA program in Japan. Let's get started. As background, I attended Hitotsubashi University's ICS MBA program from 2013 to 2015 in Tokyo. And today I would like to give background as to how I selected the Hitotsubashi University program. And I hope that that's helpful to you as you're looking at different MBA programs in Japan. Well, also as an overview, Hitotsubashi University has two MBA programs. One is entirely in Japanese, and the other is entirely in English, and that is the ICS program, which stands for International Corporate Strategy. And I will be speaking to ICS as that's the school that I attended. So without further ado, I was on the JET program. I was teaching English in Shikoku from 2010 to 2013. And prior to that, I had worked at IBM doing consultant. And while I was living in Japan, I got an email from an acquaintance who was going to Harvard's MBA program. And he was raving about what a great professor he had, Professor Takeuchi, who was a professor at Harvard. He's still a professor at Harvard, but he graduated from Hitotsubashi and then was the founding dean of Hitotsubashi, Hitotsubashi's ICS program. And so he said, Ian, you should consider this and check it out. And I did do that. And I started doing my research, and I have come up with 9 factors that really did it for me and why I chose Hitotsubashi ICS. So I will share those with you. And then there's also a bonus at the very end. So please do stay to the end. So reason number 1 was the high quality of faculty. And I could tell that because of on their website, you can look at the bios of the different faculty members. And these individuals came from leading MBA programs from around the world. And a lot of them had significant experience in the business world. So there was a lot of practitioners. And they were also concurrently consulting to companies. So there was a nice mixture there of academic background, but also practitioners that had that real world experience, and you got a nice mixture of both. So very solid faculty that are very connected with the business community in Tokyo and beyond. The second reason was the size of the program. It was quite small. So when I attended, it was around 55 students, and it's now around 40 students, I believe. So it's quite small, and the beauty of that is the faculty to student ratio is 3-to-1. So you really get to know the faculty members. They have a ZEMI program, which is similar to the advisor program, but it's much closer. You go out to dinner with your ZEMI. There's this concept that it goes beyond just your time in school, and you can check back with your ZEMI for advice or career advice. I found that to be very true, and I personally went to a small school for college, and I just appreciate a small place where you don't feel like you're a number, and Hitotsubashi offered that. Number 3 is its location. It's located in Tokyo, and Tokyo is the largest city in Japan. It's also a location for a lot of, or the majority of, global Japanese companies. And so it's a good place to be located if you are like I was, non-Japanese, with English language skills and some Japanese language skills, but looking to work for global companies that are doing business outside of Japan. Reason number 4 was the cost. So I was paying for the MBA myself from savings and borrowings. So ICS It's part of Hitotsubashi University, as I said earlier, which is a national university, and so the tuition is set. It was around $5,000 a year for tuition when I attended. I believe it's going to be increasing to $6,000 a year, which is incredibly reasonable compared to MBA costs in the United States or Europe, or even some MBA tuition costs within Japan. So cost for me was important, and Hitotsubashi was excellent return on investment. Number 5 is the rigor of the education. So ICS, we would joke, stands for I can't sleep. And the professor I told you about earlier, Professor Takeuchi, who was the founding dean, would come back to the school, would visit, would give a lecture. It was always fascinating to listen to him. But he spoke about when he started ICS, it was more than 100 years after the Harvard MBA program had started. And so he was determined that in order to catch up, the program would need to be 100 times harder once you were there. And so it was an extremely rigorous education. It was the most intense period of my life. It was almost like boot camp, and there was many nights where I was up very late in order to keep up with the workload. But that really it brings you so close to your classmates and your teachers that you build bonds that will last a lifetime, and you get a world-class education that nobody can take away from you. You carry that with you for the rest of your career. So it's a rigorous program, but I very much appreciated that, and that was one of the key reasons why I decided to attend Hitotsubashi. Number 6 is the case method approach to learning business, and this was going back again to Professor Takeuchi, who had been teaching at Harvard Business School, which uses the case method, and they write a lot of the case studies of different businesses. They take the approach that you study a real life example of a business dilemma. Then all of the students read it, and then it's discussed with the professor. And through these real life business cases, you learn marketing, you learn strategy, you learn corporate finance. It's for me, it was a much more fun approach to learning business, and the fact that it was offered by Hitotsubashi was a big attraction to me. Number 7 is their emphasis on taking the best of the East and the West. So a lot of MBA programs from the part of the world I was from, which was the US, is a focus on Western style management principles. And there's a lot to be said for that. There's been a lot of successful companies. But there's also a lot to be said for different styles of management, Eastern styles of management. And what Hitotsubashi tries to do is to take the best from the East and the West and to teach that to the students so that we're equipped to be adaptive. I think there's a time and a place for this model of management and a time and a place for another model of management. So one case study that I remember was we studied Kodak versus Fujifilm. Both similar companies. They were very successful in the film business. But when the film business dried up, Kodak didn't make it, that they went bankrupt because they had become so dependent on that one line of business. Where Fujifilm saw themselves a bit broader, more of a chemical company, because their specialty was chemicals. And so they said, we're not limited to just film, but we also can do a makeup. We also can do a chemical business. So there was other lines of business there that allowed for cash flow to continue to come into the firm, which allowed them to survive, unlike Kodak. So there was a nice example of a different approach, and in that case, it worked well for Fuji, and it did not work well for Kodak. Number 8 was the strong reputation of Hitotsubashi University. So in Japan, it's a very well-respected university, and its origins go back to 1875 in Tokyo, and its focus back then was on business. So it's equivalent to the London School of Economics, perhaps, in terms of its reputation for teaching commerce, business, economics, etc. And that's very helpful when you're applying for a job, and the firms recognize the institution from which you're coming, as a rigorous institution where you're going to get a good quality education. So the strong reputation of Hitotsubashi for me was a strong positive. Number 9 is the fact that it was taught in English. I wanted to get my MBA taught in English, and they have a very unique approach at Hitotsubashi's ICS program. When I first started, the rule was we only use first names. So we don't say professor, we say their first name, and they also use our first name. And if anybody that knows Japan knows that Japan is still quite it's a top-down structure, and you use formal titles, and there's different words used when you're speaking up to somebody. So that philosophy that Hitotsubashi is using is to try to break some of that up and create a flat structure where professors and students are learning together, and that goes also into the way that you learn is it's through debate, it's through open discussion. And I remember classes, it was almost like 90% of the airtime was consumed by students discussing back and forth, with the professor only maybe 10%, just moderating the discussion. So I liked that, and also that use of English allowed for so many different nationalities to attend this university MBA program. So you got a really diverse group of perspectives, which was very, very helpful. And it's just a very globally minded university with that curriculum as well, which aligned with what I wanted to do, which was to help Japanese companies globalize and to connect outside of Japan, and to help individuals outside of Japan connect back to Japan. The final bonus of the program, which for me wasn't a deciding factor, but for many of you it may be, is the fact that the MBA program at ICS, they offer a 1-year program or a 2-year program. So if you only want to take 1 year off of work, and remember you're not earning money for those 2 years, then ICS has a 1-year program. It'll be very intense because you're studying and you're also looking for a job. But as I said earlier, that intensity really brings you close to the faculty and to the students. And if you'd like a 2-year program, which is a program that I did, you can do that as well, which gives you more time in that second year to look for a job. And that was critical to me when I was looking for a job. And also, there's further flexibility that if you'd like to graduate early and you've got enough credits, you can do that, which is something that I took advantage of. I had accepted a job offer. They were willing to start me early, and I was willing to start early, so I graduated a little bit early and didn't do those full 2 years. So a nice flexibility there in terms of scheduling for your MBA. Well, I hope this video was helpful. This was how I chose Hitotsubashi ICS, but there's many universities in Japan. There's many great MBA programs. There's Waseda, there's Keio, there's the International University of Japan, there's Globus, there's many more. And I've had colleagues, I've had friends that have attended these programs. Keio comes to mind. Globus comes to mind, and they've had very positive experiences. So just because ICS is where I ended up, I highly encourage you to look at the full set of offerings there, because there's a lot of great options in Japan for your MBA program. Well, as always, I hope this was helpful. Please be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe at Japan Seikatsu. We're a community of people that are passionate about Japan and looking to work in Japan or or connected to Japan. So thank you for your time, and best of luck on your MBA search.